Good morning, everybody. You're very welcome to the Resonate Music Network Artist Residencies Information Webinar. My name is Deirdre Moynihan and I'm the Programmes Manager at Music Network. And I'm delighted to be here today to talk to you about Resonate and to answer any questions you may have at the end of the webinar. First of all, I'll talk through the key points of the guidelines and provide some background information about Resonate. I'll also talk through the application process and tell you about the application form and how you can apply. And then at that point, we'll open for questions. So yeah, I think we're almost ready to get started. Just before we do, if you haven't already downloaded the guidelines, you might like to do this now. My colleague is, I think, putting a link to the guidelines where you can download them directly, and I think that's going directly into the chat stream. So if you want to go to the chat stream and download the guidelines from there, we can get started. There's a lot of really useful in the guidelines itself and in the appendix attached to the guidelines. And just to say, we will have a Q&A at the end, but if any questions occur to you as we're going along, do feel free to put them into the Q&A stream. So not the chat stream, but the Q&A stream, and we'll come to those. But if they occur to you as we're going along, feel free to enter them at that point, and we'll see them all at the end in the Q&A. So I think we'll get started. First of all, on behalf of Music Network, I would just like to say we're really delighted to be presenting Resonate in partnership with 6 fantastic venue partners. That is glór, Cultúrtha, the National Opera House, Triskel Arts Centre, the Dock and Regional Cultural Centre. So a big thank you to our partners on Resonate. Also, as always, I would like to say thank you very much to the Arts Council, Music Network's principal funder. So Resonate, a little bit about it. There are 6 artist residency opportunities in 6 different venue locations around the country. And essentially, Resonate is about providing support for professional musicians who have a strong track record in music performance. And it's to enable these musicians to devote time and space to developing new work and/or collaborations. And the new work, it could be creation of new material in terms of new compositions, or it might be that you want to develop a new collaboration, or, for example, take a different approach or explore a new body of work with an existing collaboration. So it's very open in terms of the type of proposal that you can put forward for these residency opportunities. And in addition to the development time and the opportunity to develop work, the residencies also include a concert performance and showcasing of new material in both live and digital environments. And another key aim is to foster relationships between musicians and venue partners. Really important that we help to develop those key relationships. So that's just an overview of Resonate. Where are the residencies taking place? So as I mentioned, we're presenting Resonate in partnership with 6 wonderful venues. glór is in Ennis, County Clare. Ionad Cultúrtha is in Mhúirne in Cork County. The National Opera House is in Wexford Town. Triskel Arts Centre in Cork City. The Dock in Carrick-on-Shannon, and Regional Cultural Centre in Letterkenny. So it's very much spread out across the country, all 6 opportunities. When are the residencies taking place? Well, they will take place between July and November 2021. So development periods to happen between July and September, October, and then final concert performance at the end of each residency to happen in early November 2021. So what does each residency opportunity include? What does it offer? So a grant or an award of between 6 and 10,000, up to 12 development days, a concert performance, an audio-visual recording of new material, online sharing of work in progress, and in-kind advice and support from both Music Network and the venue partner. So just before I elaborate a little bit further about those 6 points, just wanted to mention that you'll have downloaded the guidelines at this stage, and there's an appendix at the end. And in that appendix, there are 6 pages, if you like, a page dedicated to each residency opportunity, which outlines key information which is specific to that residency. So that's really important in the appendix, that you check out that information. And so whereas I'm going to talk generally about these 6 points here, you can find, you know, the specific information related to each residency in the appendix. So an award of between 6 and 10,000. So the grants are for 6, 8 and 10,000 euro. There are up to 12 development days. So this is these are opportunities to develop your work and your practice in a space provided by each venue. So the main development period, the first 10 days, if you like, is ideally would happen between July and September, October. The specific periods and specific dates during those months would, of course, be discussed directly between the artist and the musician themselves, the appointed musician, to see, you know, what works for you both in terms of availability of the space and availability in terms of musicians' time. And then there's a final 2 development days, ideally to happen close to the concert time. So the concert, as I said, they're due to happen at the beginning of November, so you would have another 2 development days closer to that time to revisit the material that you've developed during the main development period, and I suppose to prepare for the concert performance. And that brings us on to the concert performance, which is an opportunity to showcase and premiere the new material that you've created during the residency. It's not meant to be exclusively new material, of course, just that the new material would be showcased during your concert performance. And ideally, the concert performance will take place live in each venue in early November. An audio-visual recording of the new material. So each venue partner will work with the artist in residence to document the new material by creating an audio-visual recording of this work. And this documentation will be showcased, if you like, on Music Network's website and on our YouTube channel, and also that of the partners. And you know, it's capturing the fantastic work that you have produced during the residency opportunity. Online sharing of work in progress. So that is really an opportunity to engage with the public during the development period. I suppose inviting people to engage with what you do and sharing, I suppose, providing insight into your artistic process, sharing the work that you do as it's developed, and how you do this online and how you choose to do this will be very much led by what you feel is appropriate in terms of the work you are developing. So very much a discussion on what works best here, but both Music Network and the venue partner will provide advice and training in relation to the creation of online content or the creation of social media content to share your work in progress during the development period. And other in-kind support from Music Network and the venue partner. So throughout each residency, Music Network will be on hand to provide advice across a number of areas, and the venue partner, a lot of in-kind support, as I mentioned, is outlined in that appendix. So the page relevant to each particular residency opportunity will list in-kind support available to the artist during their residency at that venue. I suppose it goes without saying these days, all activities taking place in venues, so that's the development days and the final concert performance, they will of course be subject to COVID-19 restrictions. And in the event that live performances cannot go ahead in November as intended, you know, an alternative plan will be discussed and agreed, whether that's to postpone till a slightly later date when live performances, for example, could happen, or to make a high quality digital recording of a concert for broadcast. You know, that's something, you know, all of that will be discussed and agreed as and when a contingency plan may or may not be needed. So who can apply for Resonate? So essentially it's for individual professional musicians with a strong track record in performance, performing in a range of genres. So if you go to the appendix, you'll see it's very broad in terms of the range of genres that are eligible to apply with, and you can see specific information related to each residency opportunity in the appendix in relation to genres. Now you can apply as a solo artist or in collaboration with up to 2 other people. You can propose single or multiple genre, cross art form project ideas. I suppose if it's cross art form project ideas, it's important that music would be a core element, that there would be perhaps music compositions produced, that there would be a strong focus on music for cross art form project ideas. Individual musicians, the main applicant must currently be living in the Republic of Ireland, and they must be aged 18 or over. So also to say that Music Network is committed to equity and inclusion, and particularly welcomes applications from underrepresented musicians, including but not limited to musicians of colour, musicians with disabilities, traveller musicians, LGBTQ+ musicians. So it's very inclusive, and we welcome applications from everyone. So who is not eligible to apply? Musicians without a strong record in performance and musicians under the age of 18. So you need to be 18 or over in order to be eligible to apply for Resonate. So just some additional information. Applicants can apply for one residency only, and in the application form you'll be asked to select a residency that you would like to apply for. Collaborators can include, of course, other performers, but also composers and practitioners from other art forms, as we said. And just to mention that in the event that a digital contingency is required for the live performance, costs involved in making a high quality audio-visual recording of the concert for broadcast, they will be provided or covered as in-kind support, and they don't need to be covered under the award that the musician receives. So just to be aware of that. So now we're moving on to the application process. So to apply for Resonate, you would visit musicnetwork.ie, download the guidelines. I know you have done that already from the chat stream today. You then create an account on the application portal, and the link to this portal is of course on musicnetwork.ie. Once you've created your account, you can log in and fill in the application form. You can do this in stages. So it might be an idea to log in first, have a look at exactly what's being asked for in the application form, then scroll down to the end and save a draft, and come back then and fill it in, complete it in stages, upload the essential materials, the essential and optional support materials. So very much user-friendly in that way. You don't have to have everything and complete it in one sitting. You can come back and do it in stages and think about what you want to upload and what you want to say. I suppose a really important point is that you submit your application before the deadline. The deadline is Thursday, the 24th of June at 2 p.m. So do make sure that you get your application submitted prior to this. I would recommend doing it at least the day before. You don't want to be stressed on the day with any technical issues that might arise. Your internet could go down, anything could happen. So if you can at all, I'd recommend preparing well in advance of this date and try and get your application submitted prior to the 24th, because late applications won't be assessed, unfortunately. And then just to say that once you have submitted your application, you will receive an automated confirmation email. So if that doesn't come into your inbox, do check your spam folder or the junk folder, just to check in case it has been mistakenly misdirected to there. And if it's not there, do get in touch with us at Music Network, because you need to receive the automated email to be sure that your application has been submitted. So if there's any issue over that, if you have any concern that you haven't received the email, do get in touch with us at Music Network, and there'll be details that I'll share later in the presentation here where you can contact us by email or by phone. And finally, just to say that you will receive results of the assessment by email in July. So just to, I suppose, provide an overview of the application form. As you can see there are 6 sections. It's very straightforward. The first section is just your contact details. You know, that's self-explanatory, doesn't need any elaboration there. The residency details, this is where you will be asked to select the residency that you want to apply for and to outline why you want to apply for that particular residency opportunity, you know, why you feel your proposal is a good match for that particular venue. You know, it could be for logistical reasons, it could be for artistic reasons. Most likely it'll be a combination of both. So to outline why you would like to do your residency in the particular venue that you've selected. In addition to that, at this point, you'll also be asked if you're applying for a solo residency, or for example, if you're intending to collaborate with others. And if it's a solo residency, you will be uploading your CV there at that point. And if you plan to collaborate with others, you'll be asked to upload their biographies in section 2. Then moving on to section 3, details on your residency proposal. So essentially here you'll be outlining what you intend to do and what you hope to achieve during the residency. So it's a chance to outline your artistic concept and your goals and aims and what you intend, as I said, what you intend to do, but you know, to outline your approach and how you plan to approach and to carry out the work that you're proposing to do. And you will have the opportunity to upload up to a 2-page document to outline this, and you know, to also list collaborators and how you plan to work together, and maybe share your thoughts on the final concert and you know, how you see the new material integrating into the final concert performance. At that point as well, you will be asked to upload a 1-minute video, which is really just a chance to summarize in your own words what you want to do, what you hope to achieve during the residency period. Also in section 3, you'll be asked to upload the budget for the residency. And so this will include artist fees and any other artist expenditure. So this could be, you know, travel accommodation if it's applicable for you. You might intend to, if you need insurance cover, for example, 1 or 2 of the venues are not in a position to provide insurance cover. So if you have to provide insurance cover, you can include that as under the award. And also, you know, for example, if you have a particular instrument that you might need to hire or a particular piece of equipment that, you know, isn't provided as in-kind support, you know, this can be factored into your residency budget. So when you're happy with your budget, you upload the budget in section 3. And then finally, the last item in section 3 is the opportunity to upload up to 3 samples of your work, 3 audio and visual samples of your work. It can be all audio, it can be a mix of audio and video. You can either upload up to 3 MP3s directly using the application form upload button. And with that, you're asked to provide a Word doc, which provides details of the materials you're uploading, you know, what the title of the piece is, who is performing in it. If it's a longer work where you want people to actually listen from a particular point, you know, for example, if you're uploading or sharing material that you want people to listen from 3 minutes in, you know, put that in the details, and you know, that's where the panel will start listening from. So anything you want to share about the recording, you can put it in a Word document or a PDF and upload that document. If you prefer not to upload MP3s, or if you want to upload something visual, a clip, you can just put the links into a Word doc or a PDF and the samples can be accessed in that way online. Just to say that if you are sharing links of where material can be accessed to listen to, for example, SoundCloud, just make sure that the link is fully accessible, that it's not, there's no private, what should we say, restrictions on it, or, if so, provide a password, just to make sure that the panel will be able to listen to the, I'm sure, fantastic samples you will be uploading. So then we move on to section 4. This is optional support materials. So if you feel it would be beneficial or strengthen your application or your proposal to upload some additional materials, you can upload up to 5 additional support materials. I mean, they could be anything. It might be a review of a concert performance, a review of a recording. It might be a score excerpt, an image, absolutely whatever you feel you'd like to share in terms of supporting your proposal. Then section 5 it's just a checklist for the essential support materials. So all of the essential support materials have to be uploaded in order for your application to be assessed. So it's really, I suppose, a reminder, really, you need to be able to tick yes to each of the items as applicable on that checklist. So you can go back then and check if you've missed something. And finally, section 6 is an optional section. It's essentially, as it says there, research and feedback. So you're asked, how did you hear about Resonate? And also there's an opportunity to share any thoughts that you might like to share with us about Resonate, about the program itself, and also perhaps about the application process, or anything you'd like to share, really. And just to say that, any information shared in section 6 is, it has no impact on your application, and won't be, it won't play any part in the assessment of your application. So do feel free to be as open as you like with your feedback. We really would welcome it, and we take all feedback on board, and we'd really appreciate hearing your thoughts about Resonate and about, as I said, the application process and how you feel it works for you. So then, just to show you a couple of examples of how you would be entering information into the application form. I'm sure this is something you've all seen many times, but just to briefly go through it, 1.3 and 1.4 there, they're just simple text boxes where you enter your email address and the contact number. There'll also be some radio buttons, as you see on the right there, 1.5. Are you over the age of 18, for example? If you click the yes button, you continue on the form. If you click the no button, an alert will come up to let you know that, unfortunately, if you're under 18, you're not eligible to apply for Resonate. So that's just another example of how you'll be entering information into the form. Below there, 2.2, you see there's an example of a larger text box with a word limit, where you would enter information. And just keep an eye on the word limits. You will see those. If there is a word limit, it's at the bottom there. And once you click out of the text box, if you've gone over the word limit, you'll have to go back in and edit it. So just be mindful of that, and keep an eye on the word limits as you're entering the information there. So now just 2 other examples I wanted to share. 3.4 is an example of how you'll be uploading files through the form. So you'll see under the question there, acceptable file types. And when we were speaking about uploading audio and video samples, I mentioned you could upload MP3s directly through the form, or you could outline links in a document, and also additional detail about the recordings in a document. So you can see there, the acceptable file types are MP3s, or PDFs, docs, or docxs. So if you decide to upload MP3s, you can select choose files, browse to where those MP3s are on your own desktop, and upload the files. Also, just to mention, on the right hand side there, you see there's some additional information. So keep an eye on those as you're going through the form. There's lots of tips and, I suppose, reminders really about the question on the right hand side. So yeah, just keep an eye on those as you go through. Some useful information on the right hand side there. And finally, I just wanted to mention, as I said, you can save a draft of your application as many times as you would like. So if you're, scrolling through the form and you might work on a particular section and then you want to save that and come back to it later, just scroll down to the bottom of the form and you'll see there's a save draft option there. At that point, you can do that as many times as you want. And when you're finally, happy to submit the form, at that point, you scroll down to the bottom, click I agree with terms of use and click apply. And, it's not possible to edit anything additional in your application at that point after you've clicked apply. So make sure you avail of the save draft option as many times as you need to before you're 100% happy with the form. So now moving on to the assessment process and the selection criteria. So the selection criteria are really important in that this is, I suppose, the criteria are the basis on which your application will be assessed. So you really need to be mindful of these selection criteria as you're looking at your proposal. So the first of these, artistic quality and track record in music performance of the main applicant and any collaborators. And you can demonstrate this through your CV and your biographies and additional support materials that you upload. The quality and coherence of the artistic proposal. So this is referring to, where in section 3, you will be outlining your plan, your program of work for the residency. And so, making sure it's a coherent and achievable and creative proposal. That is what that selection criteria is referring to. Compatibility with venue, as we mentioned, why you're selecting a particular venue and how you feel your proposal aligns, with what that venue is, I suppose, offering, if you like. And then the feasibility of your proposal. So, of course, you will, I'm sure, have ambitious proposals, but just make sure that they're also realistic and achievable within the time. And in terms of feasibility as well, to be mindful that your budget should absolutely make provision for fair remuneration of artists. So that's a brief overview of the selection criteria, and then the assessment process. So a panel will consider all applications received, and the panel will be comprised of a representative from Music Network, from the venue partner and external expertise. Successful and unsuccessful applicants will receive notification in July 2021, so do keep an eye on your emails at that point. As I said earlier, notification will be by email. And finally, just to mention that feedback will be available upon request for 4 weeks following communication of the results. So you can get in touch to request feedback for up to 4 weeks after you receive communication of the results. So we're nearly at the end here. Tips for applicants. I know that these will appear very obvious and you will have thought of all of these things, but it's just small things can, I suppose, trip people up. So it's just a reminder really of things that I know you'll be aware of already, but do take care to read the guidelines carefully and to make sure you are aware of everything that's being required in terms of essential support materials. Take care to really think about the selection criteria, all of those things when putting together your proposal, and of course be mindful of the information that's included in the appendix related to the opportunity that you're applying for. A key thing, I suppose, is not to assume that assessors are familiar with your work. You may be, I'm sure, very established artist, but not everyone on the panel may be familiar with your work. So make sure to, I suppose, approach your proposal with that in mind. Ensure audio and visual recordings offer the best representation of your work. Again, of course, this is a very obvious thing to say, but just to be mindful, for example, the quality of the recording. It doesn't need to be a CD quality recording or, at that level, but just keep an eye that, you know, the background noise, for example, isn't very loud, you know, that it's perhaps interfering on how well someone hears what you're playing or singing in the recording. So just, you know, before you submit, do a final quality check on the recording and make sure, you know, it represents you in the best possible light. And then again, another obvious one, you know, that your information, you know, be clear, concise and relevant, you know, and get to the point early, you know, to make your points clearly. And finally, again, another reminder about the deadline. It's Thursday, the 24th of June, 2021 at 2 p.m. So do get your applications in before this. So at this point, we're going to open some questions. I see there are questions in the Q&A there. But just to say as well, if you don't get an opportunity, or if a question occurs to you afterwards, there's no problem. Do get in touch with us. You can email operations@musicnetwork.ie or phone us on 01475 0224 Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. But for now, I think we're going to move on to the Q&A. And I see, as I said, there's questions there in the Q&A. I think we're at this point also delighted to be joined by some of the venue partners. So we have a few representatives from the venues. So I'm going to ask those to join us right now I'm going to stop screen sharing first of all. Let me just do that in the first instance. Now. So yes, we're delighted to be joined by, I see there, Tony Sheehan, Director of Triskel Arts Centre, Orla Flanagan, Director of glór in Ennis. We have Liz O'Dowd, Finance Manager at the Dock, and Gillian Hensey there from Triskel Arts Centre. We may be joined by one or two more as we go along, and I'll introduce those faces as they join the panel. Actually, I see, maybe I can scroll right. Oh no, yeah. So I think that's, we have Aoife Granville also joining us there from Untitled Cultúrtha, which is fantastic. So many thanks to you all for joining us today. I'm going to start reading through the questions. Feel free to jump in with any thoughts at any point, of course, or if there's anything in particular you'd like to share with us. And of course, any questions specific to your residency, we'd be really delighted to hear from you. So I'll start reading out the questions, and I guess we'll take it from there as we go along. I'm just going to see if I can change my view here a little bit. Yeah, okay. So first question. Okay, I cannot get the sound to work. Hopefully that was resolved. We'll answer that. We'll move on from there. Does the in-kind advice and support from the venue have to be direct to the artist, or could it be given to the artist's assistant? Does the in-kind advice and support from the venue have to be direct to the artist, or could it be given to the artist's assistant? Well, would one of the venue partners like to address that? You know, how do you prefer, if you like, to liaise with artists? I'd imagine it might be directly with the artists themselves, but you know, perhaps someone would like to. Tony, love to hear that.
Just in terms of some of these questions, it'll very much depend on the context of your proposal. So if it makes sense in terms of the project that you want to do, certainly speaking for Triskel, we'll facilitate anything that achieves the best possible outcome for the proposal. Now, I can't imagine myself, just off the top of my head, why you would be given in-kind support to the artist's assistant, but that's where the proposal will tell me, you know. And so it's really just, first of all, thanks Deirdre for going through all this. You know, a lot of people are exhausted with all these applications, and you know, it's not easy to try and assemble something, to do something good and do it fairly and do it properly with good quality. And a great vote of thanks is owed to you and to everybody in Music Network for doing all this hard work. I just want to say that. Secondly, I think the venues, I speaking on behalf of Triskel, but I'm sure we all feel this, we're really excited that we're going to be able to engage in this way in a very living way with our artists and their work, where we get to accompany you all the way through this journey over the next few months. And so in terms of putting together a proposal, if you can be as clear with your map as possible, that will help us to decide how best to help you, including dealing with kind of subtle nuances, like whether the in-kind support should go over here or over there, And the other thing is there's no trick questions, and we're not trying to catch anybody out. What we're trying to do is just get a clear and as pragmatic picture as possible, so that we can realistically give proper support so that the thing is meaningful for everybody at the end of the day.
Thank you very much, Tony. Would anybody else from the venues like to say anything additional there, or will I continue on? Yeah, I think that was very nicely summed up. Thank you, Tony. And as you said, a lot of the questions here, they will, the answers will come when the proposal is seen and the discussion is being had between the artists and the partner promoters themselves. I mean, the next question, is it necessary to state in the application which musicians will perform in the final performance? That might be something which evolves with the work. I mean, I guess, of course, that could be the case, but it is good to have a clear plan of what you want to achieve and who you're hoping to work with, to outline, I suppose, a concise and clear plan, as you saw in the selection criteria, to be really clear on what you're trying to achieve here, and to state that at the beginning, so that we can work with you to make that happen in the best possible way. Can an ensemble of 3 collaborate with a composer for a new music commission? Well, I suppose, as I said in the talk there, one of the collaborators can be a composer, of course. The collaborators don't exclusively have to be musicians. So a composer can take part, of course. The main applicant is the musician with the strong track record, and you may decide to collaborate with a composer or other musicians. That's entirely up to yourself as to what you'd like to propose there. Are the performance dates fixed in stone? Could the performance be on other dates around those? So, as a starting point, we have included November 3rd to November 7th. And so within that time frame, of course, a discussion between the venues and the appointed artist would take place to see what works for everybody. I think that's probably the approach we're all intending to have there, but maybe one of the, I don't know, Orla or Lizzie, you might like to step in there just to see what your thoughts are in relation to that.
Well, for us in Carrick, the venue is quite small, so the dates will be a little bit fluid for us, I think, to see how we come back. Yeah.
And I think in the current climate, everything requires a flexible approach, but we need a starting point, and at the moment, I guess that is the starting point, and we see how things unfold from there. So thanks, Liz. So can you apply without having a clear outline of what you'll be developing? Well, I suppose it's good to have a clear idea. I mean, obviously things evolve creatively as you go through your residency, and things may adapt and change, but I think it's important to have a clear idea of the concept you're trying to develop and what you're trying to achieve. As I said, one never knows what creative direction things may take as things evolve, but I think it's important to have a starting point from which you work, and really clearly outline what you'd like to achieve. Tony, absolutely jump in there.
Yeah, and just to say that this is a residency that will be qualitatively different from, say, Anna McCarrick, where you would go to spend a period of time reflecting, writing, doing all that kind of. There's a much more directed sense, at least for Triskel. We want to put you on stage. We want a new work on stage, and we want, because we're venues, we're not artist retreats, and this isn't an artist retreat type of residency, if that helps.
Absolutely, Tony. Thank you for that. As Tony said, there is a concert performance at the end and a sharing of new material. So whereas things may you know, you can't predict exactly the way things go creatively. You do need to have a clear outline to start off with. I think that's fair enough. So, sorry, I'm just trying to scroll down here. If you're in receipt of an Arts Council bursary during the specified time period, would that be considered a conflict of interest? Well, I would think not if it's a completely different project and there's no overlap. You know, I wouldn't see that as a conflict of interest if it's a totally separate project. So hi Deirdre and team, I had a question on eligible genres. How rigid are the requirements stated in the guidelines? For example, for the Regional Cultural Centre, it states welcomes applications from classical, jazz, electronica, Irish traditional musicians, including multi-genre. I am a folk artist and wondering whether I should instead apply to a different venue. And would any of the venues like to, venue partners, excuse me, like to say anything about the genres? I mean, I think it's very clear what you have outlined in the appendix in terms of genres that you'd welcome. But if you'd like to add to anything to that, you know, in terms of, I suppose, flexibility or what you feel you'd be open to welcoming. Obviously, we don't have RCC here today, so we can check your query with RCC and see the degree of flexibility that is there within what they have outlined. So certainly you can get in touch with us, Patrick, if you'd like us to check that. But, you know, I do think, you know, the venues have been clear in terms of, and it's very open generally in terms of the genres that they'd really love to receive proposals in relation to. So, yeah, Patrick, if you'd like to get in touch with us afterwards, we can certainly investigate that further with you. Are there any supports residencies available for musicians? Sorry, it's changing here. Are there any supports residencies available for musicians, composers who don't yet have a strong track record? I suppose I couldn't answer that off the top of my head. You know, I suppose we can only talk about Resonate and what that is aimed at today. So, you know, I couldn't speak to that right just today, but you know, the Resonate is I suppose for established musicians who have a strong track record in performance. Is there a specific duration for the live performance? I wouldn't think it would be, you know, totally prescriptive. You know, it would depend on many things, many variables, artistic variables, and of course, you know, discussing with the venue. You know, it could be one longer work, you know, performance of 60-70 minutes, or you might decide to have a break in between, 45 minutes. You know, I don't think time, you know, deciding on specific times would be something to be concerned about. You know, yeah, absolutely, Tony.
Just on that, just be aware though that venues will be governed by COVID-19 restrictions what are in place at the time, and currently the wisdom, well, certainly when we were open last time, I don't know how the other venues dealt with this, but our performances did not last more than 50 minutes. There was no interval. And all that had at the time to do with best practice around being indoors, ventilation, and all the rest of that stuff. So if you wanted to do a durational work, for example, for 8 hours in a venue where people are coming and going, that's fantastic under normal circumstances, and there would be venues that would be very happy to go with that. But there might well be a few landmines in there around COVID restrictions just to be mindful of. So the wisdom is conventional concert times and conventional concert structures are probably the safest, just practically speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Orla?
And then just to add to that as well, and I hope I'm right in this, so I'm sanity checking with you, Deirdre, but our expectation isn't that the concert, however long it lasts, probably ideally, like as Tony says, kind of up to 60-70 minutes certainly would be my kind of cutoff currently. But the new work that is developed during the residency doesn't have to be that length.
No, absolutely.
That could be much shorter. And then there would be work from your repertoire that would be featured as well. And that's obviously for the artist to figure out, but we're not expecting 70 minutes of new work during that. So just to highlight that really.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for mentioning that again. We did mention that briefly during the talk, so but it's great to, to be really clear on that, because people might feel terrible pressure to produce an hour of new material, which is a huge amount of, so it's about the performance is about showcasing the work you produced as part of your concert performance. So yeah, thanks a million for highlighting that again, Orla. That's really helpful. Do these residents? Sorry, Liz. Yeah.
No, I was just going to exactly say the same thing as what Orla said, that obviously the new work would just form a part of a full performance.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much. So do these residencies, a question from Claire Kilkenny, do these residencies occur annually in case I'd like to apply for another year? Well, Claire, this is the first year that Resonate has been presented. So I guess we hope that it will continue in the future, but this is just the first presentation of it. So it remains to be seen, but hopefully projects like this get to continue on. So Emma Langford, I'd also like to know about the genre specs. Would it be appropriate to intend to explore one of the genres with a collaborator if you don't currently work in it or have a track record in it? Or would you be eligible in one of your, if one of your trio members specializes in that genre, so that would permeate the work created? I would think that would be a very valid artistic exploration to, collaborate with someone who, another high quality musician who's from a different genre. It's a great way to develop what you do. So I would think anyway that would be a very, there'd be a clear rationale for why that would make a great proposal. And I don't know if any of the partners would like to comment on that, but it seems like artistic reasons would be really excellent there.
Yeah, I would echo that. And again, like the proposal would probably make that clear. So if you're going on a journey with a genre that you're not familiar with, but part of your collaboration involves perhaps a specialist in that genre, that absolutely makes sense to me.
Yeah.
In terms of a valid way to approach the work,
Yeah. There'd be very exciting journeys there, I think, taking that approach and see where things can go creatively. So yeah, absolutely, Emma. So moving on to Victor Fear, it says up to 12 development days. Is there a minimum amount of days you have to participate at the venue, or can you work away from the venue except for the concert? Would one of the venues like to take this? I mean, to work entirely away from the venue, it would be hard to build a relationship there. Obviously, there may be flexibility, that if it makes sense to do so at times, but obviously, Orla, Tony, or Liz, or Aoife, I don't know, you might like to speak to that.
A bit like what Tony said, I think it depends on the proposal and the nature of the work being developed, and if it's field work and you're gathering sound and all of that, that makes sense that you're not stuck in one space in the venue. But I think a commitment, a sense of exchange, I think is really important in this. So if we can do that in other ways, I think we've shown ourselves to be very adaptable in that sense. But I think connection with the venue, or with, for me and Claire, I'm interested in kind of connecting with the county maybe as much as the venue in a sense. And if there's reason to be kind of connected in a different way, that's not just building based, I'm open to that. I don't know what everyone else feels, but I think I think it's about your proposal and what your proposal needs, from my point of view anyway.
Yeah. Sorry, Tony, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, just to say that we'll have a clock card and you'll be checking in at 9 o'clock, and if you're not there, you'll be docked, and you won't be able to check out until you've done your 12 hours every day for 5 weeks.
It sounds tough. It sounds tough.
No, I think the proposal will make that clear. Yeah. And again, if it makes sense within the proposal, then that's how it'll be evaluated.
Yeah.
There again, there aren't any of those kind of landmines really in any of these residencies, I don't think. I think really it's the power of the idea and the sense of clarity around it that will help the venues in particular, who are coming, I think, I think it's fair to say from a very pragmatic point of view, you know, you're a person coming into us, you're using our equipment, we're there with you, we're sharing ideas with you, you're getting to know us. And so if a determination is made that, well, actually, I need to be on my own somewhere else while I'm writing this, you know, I don't think that's going to be an issue. And I think it's the proposal that will dictate it, really. It's the work that will dictate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much, Tony. You know, as you both said, you know, very eloquently, it's about supporting people to develop their work in the way that works for them, and you know, working together to make that happen, really, without necessarily sticking to exact details. You know, things evolve and we work together to make that happen. I'm just wondering what Music Network's definition of a strong track record in performance is. Well, I suppose there's no exact definition of that, but you know, as a you know, to have a strong, you know, track record, you would ideally be an established artist who has a significant history of performance at a professional level. I think that is probably the clearest way to sum it up, without, you know, giving exact details there as to, you know, because there's lots of variables in there, but that is essentially it. One more query from Emma Langford for now. Will venues prioritise artists living in their locality? Would any of the venues like to comment on that in terms of their perspective?
Just for, we were talking about this, it's not that we would prioritise artists living in the locality, but if anyone was looking for accommodation, it's something that would have to be given quite a bit of thought ahead of time, quite ahead of time. So it's not that we'd be prioritising people in the locality, but that's just another issue that might have to be addressed.
And as we said earlier, Liz, if, you know, accommodation may be something that may be factored into the award for each residency.
Oh yeah,
you know, yeah. So, but yeah, you don't. I suppose you don't want everything.
Availability more than cost.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's just
a hot spot,
to actually be able to get accommodation would have to be given.
Okay.
Time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I forgot how popular Carrick-on-Shannon is.
It can be.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's something that could be a factor. I'm not saying that would be the be all and end all, but it could be a factor.
Yeah.
Unless you have a boat.
Unless you have a boat. Yeah.
In terms of Triskel, I think locality is not the primary concern, but we'll be putting a lot of emphasis on the suitability of the venue to the project. So while we wouldn't have the same issues around accommodation because it's a city, you know, we'll be very much looking at seeing how the work interacts with the venue as, you know, as the kind of venue that it is. And I suppose that's important for us to mention. Like, Christchurch is a particularly beautiful place, and it lends itself in very interesting ways to all kinds of genres, all kinds of music, and that's what we would be looking at rather than the locality artist.
Yeah, absolutely. And having spoken to, you know, the other partners as well, you know, again, you know, there's an openness to work with artists from all locations, you know, but, you know, obviously there has to be a rationale and that it makes sense. And as Tony said, compatibility with the venue, and, you know, that having a strong link and a strong reason for working together, you know, all of those things will be taken into account. So Claire Kilkenny, are the planning and development days set as a block of time and set by Music Network, or are the artists free to negotiate availability to do this part? I think just very quickly to answer that, I think that you have the broad periods, months, if you like, outlined in the appendix, and then the appointed artist and each venue would then discuss between themselves what works for the venue in terms of the space and the artists. So the actual dates would need to be discussed within that period after someone has been appointed to the artist in residence position. Paxo Fuelon, will the application form be available through Irish? It's not currently available through Irish, Pax, so that is the current position. I would have to check if it will become available through Irish, but at the moment it is not. Can you send physical copies of any work as part of your application? No, everything is submitted online through the application form. Will the artist, sorry, it's just scrolling here. Will the artist have to perform in all 6 venues listed earlier, or is it just one venue for performance? It's one concert performance in the venue that you do your residency in, or that you work in, or to develop your work for the residency. For the concert final performance, will it be possible to engage musicians, performers who are not involved in the creation process? I guess this comes back to what Tony and Orla and Liz have all commented on, that, you know, it does depend on the rationale, you know, if it makes sense, if there's a clear rationale for why someone would join the final performance that maybe hasn't been one of the 3 collaborating artists during the residency period, you know, that's certainly open for discussion, and you know, if it makes sense artistically and there's a clear way this would be the case, I think that is kind of a clear way of looking at that. If there are technical problems uploading files to the site, is there a technical support email for us to contact? So if you have any issues with your application submission, you can contact Music Network on operations@musicnetwork.ie. So that same email address that you would have seen earlier, so for any technical queries. But as I said, I would recommend uploading in advance of, you know, well in advance of the deadline, because, you know, there could be a lot of applications at that time, and there'll be limited support. You know, there's only so much support one can provide on the day itself if a lot of people are having technical issues. So I would recommend to submit in advance. Do we need to get in touch with the venue directly ourselves before the application process? Certainly it's not necessary. I mean, is that something Orla or Tony or Liz you'd like to comment on? I mean, we're happy to answer any queries you may have, and also to liaise with the venue regarding any queries. But if you know, that's been our process so far, that all queries have come through ourselves, and then we've checked whatever that may be with the venue.
I don't think it's required.
Yeah,
because we have a procedure in place to assess the application.
Yeah, exactly. So is it necessary for the budget to make use of all the necessary funding in a given venue if a venue has 10,000 available, but the intended project and associated costs are significantly less? I don't think there's any pressure, certainly, to spend or to propose to spend money unnecessarily. You know, obviously, if the project costs are less, I think it's still fine to put in your proposal for the project that has a smaller amount than the award available. From which fields of expertise will external assessors be? So I guess the makeup of the expertise or the panel, you know, will need to be looked at, and of course it will depend on it will depend on the applications received, you know, in terms of, you know, we always try and have a balance of relevant genres represented on the panel, all of those things to take into consideration. So this would be something that we're currently putting in place at the moment. Thanks for all of these details, Deirdre. Great to have. So I think Una got cut off there. Oh, great to have. Sorry, apologies, Una. I understand what you mean there. From Fiona Kennedy, can you include yourself in the remuneration when paying musicians for the final performance? Thank you. Absolutely. All musicians involved, you know, you as the main applicant, and you know, the collaborators, you know, that's a really important part, I think, of Resonate, that people are fairly remunerated, and you know, so absolutely you would include performance fees for yourselves in the budget. If somebody applies as the main musician, can they also apply as a collaborator on another composer's project? Thanks a million. I would think if you can't yourself apply for 2 residencies, but if you are a named collaborator in someone else's project, if there's no crossover whatsoever, I wouldn't think that would be an issue. Will audience involvement participation be possible during the final concert? Well, I think I can speak for everyone when we say we certainly hope so, but of course that remains, you know, that's the intention, but we need to wait to see how situation evolves in relation to restrictions and what will be in place at the time.
I wonder with that question, is it kind of extended involvement or participation, or is it?
It could be absolutely
a live audience. I don't know if anyone wants to add to that, maybe to extend, but certainly in terms of COVID, I mean, we just have to be really mindful of the restrictions as we go forward.
Yeah.
And we'll know more about how our venues will be operating, but based on last year, things will be a bit more limited than normal.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, Tony, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think just to underline that just be mindful of COVID-19 in making the residency application, and don't make assumptions that may prove to unwind. I know it's difficult, and this is one of the kind of thornier issues around doing any kind of projects live. I mean, there is a very strong school of thought now that says by November, which is when most of these performances take place, we'll be back to normal. Everybody will be vaccinated and there won't be any issues. So be it. And that would be great. But if COVID-19 rules are in place, they must be followed. We don't have a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's very encouraging, Tony, to hear about November. It would be wonderful if that was the case. But thanks for clarifying that, Orla. Absolutely. You know, the extent of audience participation as such will be very much
no inviting the audience at the end to come onto the stage. Not going to be
possible. A giant hug to finish the concert. Exactly, it's probably unlikely. Is it possible to include an option to bring collaborators in the event the application is successful without knowing their biography, an open call for traditional musicians? I think that would be probably difficult to assess, in terms of what you would hope to achieve, without knowing the collaborators, given the style of what these Resonate residency opportunities are about, and they do culminate in a final performance. So I think it'll be difficult for the panel to assess if no collaborators were listed as part of the application. What? Sorry, Tony, yeah?
Yeah, I could see a scenario where that might arise, actually. And again, as long as the proposal is clear in its intent, that part of the plan is to do an open call for traditional musicians, then the panel will get it, that they'll say, okay, this is somebody who's going to bring this kind of energy into it. It sounds like fun, actually. So I think it has to be clearly stated in the proposal that will be the intent, to make an open call for traditional musicians as part of the proposal, and then the panel will have something to kind of at least discuss.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose I would say, be mindful of the feasibility of that within the time frame and all of that. Everything does, the way each proposal will be assessed, does come back to the selection criteria. So just be mindful, I suppose, if you are going to propose that, will it be feasible for it to be delivered in that way, and is it clear and concise as to what you're hoping to achieve there? So yeah, just I suppose be mindful of the feasibility of it without ruling it out. That that's a very good point, Tony. What kind of costs are we expected to incur for the final concerts and the venue is hosting these? So in terms of the artist contribution, it's to look after artist fees essentially, and if there are additional, I suppose, equipment or instrument requirements that aren't outlined as in-kind support in what the venue has outlined and detailed in the appendix, anything additional beyond that would need to be costed within the award. I think that would be the approach there, unless there's anything else anyone would like to add to that. No, okay. My application will not be fit for either Ionad Cultúrtha Cork or the Regional Culture Centre Letterkenny, yet these offer up to 66% more funding over others. How does this fit in relation to Music Network's commitment to equity and inclusion? I suppose our approach to Resonate is to make it as inclusive as possible, and all residencies are open to everyone to apply to. So you can look at, as Tony said, the very important, the match between the venue and compatibility. That's key here as well. There are many reasons why you would want to undertake a residency in any particular venue, and it's not exclusively about the amount of the grant awarded. There's varying degrees of fantastic in-kind support offered by all the venues, and I think all of the venues, all of the opportunities will be really meaningful and really valuable opportunities for anyone who engages and undertakes a residency. So I would think that the amount of the award is one aspect of these opportunities, and they're a much broader picture as well to look at as well in relation to these. Now, one more question from Emma Langford. Can you include a 4th, 5th additional collaborator in your proposal who will not be on site with you? So for Resonate 2021, the idea is that it is up to 3 collaborators, Emma, rather than having beyond this. I suppose the key thinking on this is to ensure that there's flexibility in the available award, to ensure fair remuneration of all artistic personnel involved, and to also allow flexibility for other project costs that we've just mentioned a few there to be factored into this. So that was, that's the approach for Resonate at the moment. Is there at the moment a limit due to COVID restrictions to ensemble numbers for the performance? Well, as we've said, everything. Sorry, Tony, did you want to come in there?
On the current one, on Suzanne's question, in our case, there is. So we can't have really more than 4 or 5 people, I think, on stage. We're due to kind of review that as regs change. But currently we tend not to work above quartets unless we put in special provisions like screens and stuff like that. So in terms of the validity of an application, like a large ensemble certainly won't work in Triskel. We're just not going to be able to get 16 people on stage if it's that size,
Okay. Sorry, Orla, did you want to say something there?
Well, just to say it's kind of relative to the size of the stage, because we have to ensure 2 meters distancing. So in glór, we have a very wide stage, and we can get probably like 12 on stage in very comfortably with the current restrictions. But I just imagine with the budgets that we're working on, that the focus will continue like it is in the development piece of the work, that it will continue into the performance, that it would be a small number of people that are paid, decently for the work that they do. That would be my sense of it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Orla. A clarification to my first question. Sorry, can I just check? Is everybody okay? I know this has got run over a little bit. I know people are under pressure for time. There's 10 more questions left. Will we go through those, or do you need to leave? I don't want to be holding people. Will I continue? Yeah, okay. So a clarification to my first question: would an ensemble of 3 musicians collaborating with an external composer put our ensemble application over the max number as per the guidelines of 3 applicants? The composers are considered, of course, a key collaborator, so they would be counted as part of the collaboration of 3. Hi Deirdre and team, can you apply for more than one of the residencies? No, Eva, you need to select which residency you'd like to apply for, and this is very early on in the form. It's one of the first questions you're asked. Curious as to the possibility for all venues to host each project in turn over the course of November, December, to essentially create a tour of the venues for successful projects. Could be amazing if possible. Absolutely, it would be amazing. There's the logistics involved in that, of course. So many things would be amazing, but at the moment there are no plans to do that. But of course, yeah, lots of wonderful ideas would be great to be able to implement them if we could. I have an early career artist, but I'm performing frequently for 3 years. Does that qualify as a strong track record? I've been lucky enough to have several filmed, streamed gigs since COVID, for example. Well, Helen, I think you would. I suppose you'd need to look at the number of performances and the level of performance. It's I couldn't say definitively whether that qualifies as you put it, but as I said, it is for musicians who have a significant number of professional engagements behind them really, and so I suppose your CV would convey that, and obviously you're the best judge of that yourself in terms of, you know exactly what you have been working on over the past number of years. And does the concert in November have to be the premiere for the work? If it would make sense to have the work released earlier. So the idea is that the premiere does happen as part of that live concert performance in November. You know, that's the plan, if you like. And hence why there's, you know, additional development days just before that concert performance, you know, to revisit that work and to prepare that concert with the premiere. Will there be only one proposal accepted for each venue? Yes, there's one residency opportunity available for each for each venue, excuse me. Apologies, to clarify my earlier question, the audience participation, if the main theme of the project was embodiment of music through participation in the music making process, e.g. to get the audience to tone out loud and use that as part of the music making process, or to hand out some simple instruments such as chime bars to each member for a group piece, etc. I think, Daniel, you know, the answer is the same in that it will be governed by C19 restrictions, and at the moment I don't think something like that would be feasible. So, you know, it would, I suppose, be taken into account in terms of the feasibility of what you're proposing. Of course, that would be a lovely way to kind of celebrate music in concert and to involve the audience in a participatory way, but, you know, just be mindful, as we've said a number of times, about C19 restrictions and what may or may be possible within the guidelines for that. If the maximum amount of collaborators is 3, can there be more musician performers involved in the final performance? So we've addressed that earlier. Yes, if there's a rationale, a clear artistic rationale for this. Have I? Okay. Nearly there, sorry. I sent a question to Andreas, who said it would be put forward to the panel, as I was not sure if I could make the meeting. However, I was able to reschedule. My question has not yet been asked. Is it possible to include a payment for a 4th person in the budget under fair remuneration as a management carer's role due to a disability, but not as one of the 3 performers? So I suppose in that respect, you know, in the interest of course, Resonate wants to be as inclusive as possible. If there, you know, is a clear rationale as to why, you know, someone would need additional support, you know, for example, like, as you say, Victor, a carer, I think, you know, that would certainly, you know, be something that could be proposed and accommodated. You know, it's about making sure people can take part and being as inclusive as possible. So I would say yes to that. Can I just clarify if it's possible to collaborate with an artist outside of Ireland? Apologies if this was already answered. I suppose there's, you know, the main applicant needs to be currently living in Ireland. There's no eligibility issue in terms of someone from abroad, based abroad, being involved, and certainly if artistically that is important for your program of work, you know, I think that would be in theory fine, but where you would really have to consider it is in relation to the feasibility of that person being involved. And, you know, development days may not be consecutive. It's quite unlikely that the whole will be one big block together. So, you know, the feasibility of someone being involved and having to travel back and forth, you know, with restrictions and all of that, I think what I would say to you is, you know, I would be mindful of how realistic that is. You know, as I said, it's not a question of eligibility or anything like that, because, you know, it would be fantastic if it's important to the creative output, but just be mindful of how realistic or feasible that would be. Are collaborators and music ensemble separate? If I facilitated, composed the pieces, but had a band for the final performance, do I need to provide biographies of bandmates as collaborators, or are these separate? So you do need to provide biographies of the collaborators during the development period. You know, this is your concert proposal, sorry, your project proposal. So you need to include a CV of the main applicant, which would be yourself, and then biographies for any collaborating personnel. So I think, are we on the last question? How established do you need to be? So I think we addressed that earlier. You know, it's to have a significant track record really in terms of a history of performances in the professional environment, and to be able to detail that in your CV. I think we're the end. Deborah, just that the doc does recording, would there be an engineer there to record? I think that has been outlined in the appendix, and Liz, I see Liz nodding. So again, Deborah, if you just check the appendix, information like that will be detailed there. But if you have any additional questions, do get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to liaise with the doc and find out any additional information. I think we have come to the end of our session. I want to take this opportunity, of course, to thank, well, first of all of the partners involved in this exciting project, Resonate. We're really thrilled to be working with these 6 fantastic venue partners around the country. Thank you in particular to Tony, Orla and Liz and Aoife for joining us today. It was so helpful for the question and answer there. And as I said, it was great that you were there to represent all of the venues involved. And thank you to everyone for attending today's session. We hope it was helpful. We're really excited, as Tony said earlier, to be working together and to be working together in the future with you on residencies as part of Resonate. And we're happy to help in whatever way we can. If you'd like to get in touch, as I said, afterwards with Music Network, if you have any additional questions following this webinar. But thank you again to everyone for attending, and thank you to Tony, Liz and Orla. And we look forward to seeing some, what I know will be fantastic, really exciting applications over the next while. So many thanks and best of luck with your applications. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.